Welcome to this explainer. We're diving right into the architectural and biological blueprint of a honeybee colony. It's basically a masterclass in nature's design, zooming in on how individual bee biology and their collective behavior just sync up perfectly. So let's jump right in.
Here is a quick look at our agenda for today. We've got Destiny in a Single Egg, Metamorphosis, A Tale of Three Castes, the hive's living thermostat, and finally, a really fascinating thermoregulation study.
To kick things off, we have to ask a genuinely mind-bending question about biological destiny. How is it that two seemingly identical eggs can have drastically different outcomes based on just a couple of hidden variables? I mean, how does one become a sterile worker and another a fertile queen? It's a stunning mix of genetics and diet.
Let's hit Section 1, Destiny in a Single Egg, the microscopic beginning. We're starting at the very microscopic level of a single egg, no bigger than a grain of rice, standing upright in a waxy hexagonal cell.
Right at the starting line, there is this massive genetic fork in the road. The queen literally dictates the sex of her offspring the moment she lays the egg. If she chooses to release sperm and fertilize it, that diploid genetic code develops into a female, so a worker or a queen. But if she leaves it unfertilized, that haploid egg, which carries exactly 50% of her unique genes, is destined to become a male drone. Pretty wild, right?
Moving right along to Section 2, Metamorphosis, Egg to Adult, the biological journey. This is where we track that complete physical transformation, scientifically known as being holometabolous. This growth builds across 4 distinct stages. Every single bee starts out as that tiny egg for 3 days, hatches into a hungry, curled-up larva, then goes through a massive cellular reorganization sealed under a wax cap as a pupa, and finally, chews its way out as a fully formed adult. Now, the sheer scale of larval growth is just unbelievable. These tiny white grubs are putting away around 1,300 meals a day and growing 1,570 times their original size in just 5 days. That literally makes a human teenager's appetite look completely reasonable. And this specific window, it's absolutely crucial, because this is exactly when diet dictates destiny. A female larva fed a standard mix of pollen and nectar becomes a sterile worker. But if she gets fed exclusively royal jelly, boom, that specialized diet completely rewrites her destiny, triggering her development into a fertile queen.
Which brings us to Section 3, A Tale of Three Castes, the structure of the colony. Because once metamorphosis is totally complete, the hive operates using these 3 distinct groups.
Just look at how these development timelines vary. Notice how the queen, even though she's the largest bee in the hive, actually develops the fastest, just 16 days total. Compare that to the female worker at 21 days, or the male drone who takes a full 24 days. So that royal jelly diet doesn't just change her reproductive anatomy, it literally hits the fast-forward button on her entire biological development.
Visualizing these physical cues and timelines is super essential out in the field for a beekeeper. For instance, if you spot capped swarm cells hanging from the comb, well, the old queen is likely already left with a swarm. Or if the hive is acting unusually aggressive, just really nasty, you might be looking at a completely queenless hive. The physical presence and development of these castes completely dictate the mood and behavior of the whole colony.
Let's jump to Section 4, the hive's living thermostat. Collective thermoregulation. We know how vulnerable these developing eggs and pupae are, but how do they survive unpredictable, freezing, or scorching outside weather?
Well, the magic number is 35 degrees Celsius. Bee brood is stenothermic. That basically means they cannot regulate their own temperature and require this incredibly precise 35-degree microclimate to develop properly. If that temp drops or spikes by more than just half a degree, the developing bees can suffer from physical defects, brain disruptions, or even die. No pressure, right?
So, to maintain this perfect environment, the adult workers step up as a synchronized living HVAC system. They actively use 3 interlaced steps. First, they create a living heat shield, basically pressing their bellies against hot surfaces to passively absorb heat. If it gets cold, they rapidly contract their thoracic wing muscles to vibrate and actively generate heat. And when it's too hot, they fan the air with their wings and spread water around for evaporative cooling. They are quite literally a living, breathing climate control system.
To see this collective thermostat in action, let's look at Section 5, the Thermoregulation Study, Peer Community Journal Findings.
This was a really compelling 2023 study out of Avignon, France.
Researchers meticulously monitored 29 hybrid honeybee colonies over 2 whole years. They placed highly accurate sensors right smack in the center of the brood, recording temps every 5 minutes. The goal here was to test a pretty logical assumption. Does a larger colony with a massive number of adult bees automatically mean better temperature stability?
Well, the data revealed a massive plot twist. It turns out it's actually the amount of vulnerable brood, the stimulus intensity, that positively drives the mean brood temperature toward that optimum 35 degrees. Having a huge adult population, that does not significantly drive the stability or accuracy of the temperature. The workers are responding directly to the actual need of the babies, not just relying on the sheer size of their own workforce.
The researchers summed it up perfectly with this quote, noting that colonies have an extremely high effectiveness to thermoregulate regardless of size. It brilliantly highlights the sheer resilience of the colony. Whether a hive has 5,000 adults or 40,000, if there's brood that needs protecting, the collective organism just steps up and gets the job done.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. If the blueprint of a bee is rewritten entirely by its environment, its diet, and the rigorous care of its community, what does that tell us about the true limits of genetics? When we look at a hive, we aren't just looking at biology. We are looking at the power of the collective to shape destiny.